good at that.
You're listening to Inside Real Estate, your source for all things mortgage and real estate related. The show that brings you all the hottest topics and insights directly from those who know it most. Now sit back and enjoy the show.
You like that, Jeff?
I do.
Yeah, that's nice, right? What's up, everyone? Paul Paslakis, Salvatore Kuzmano, Brad Weisgerber. We are Inside Real Estate. Today we have a very, very special guest, Jeff Packer with the Packer Group, Caldwell Banker out in Plymouth. Welcome to the show. I'm glad you made it here. Obviously, it's a big deal to have you here. We appreciate it.
Yeah, good to be here.
Just so everybody knows, thank you so much for all the feedback. Go to irepodcast.com. Send us some feedback if you have questions, concerns, anything like that. If you like our show, please go ahead and give us a review and give us some stuff on like iTunes. Is it?
Feedback's a gift.
That's right. Feedback is a gift. You're right.
Where did that come from?
I don't know. Just so we get this clear. So next week we've got Habib on the show, and Brad, you weren't here. Barry Habib, yeah, you weren't on the show last week, and but we
listened.
Pre-recorded it because I'm going to be in Europe. But you're here now.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
You've been on so just so you know, Jeff, Brad is from the UP, the Upper Peninsula, which is basically a different country,
right?
Brad,
it's Canada.
It's basically Canada.
Not Canada.
I mean, I don't know what it is. It's not even Canada. So you went on you bought a camper. You took the family camping for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was fantastic.
You look good. You shaved.
I did not shave
No,
yet.
not shaved.
I have not shaved yet.
Your hair changed colors.
I haven't
too.
finished unpacking my
That's the
camper
shittiest beard I've ever seen in my life.
It's complete Joe Dirt.
If that's 2 weeks worth of growth, I'm sorry, man.
It is. It's bad. Yeah, no. Trust me.
Rub some
That's why
testosterone on that.
That's why I never grow it.
You guys-
I just haven't shaved it yet.
So last night, everybody was doing this app where you make yourself older, and like Brad just looks like that.
Man, Brad's is good. Brad looks like
I was happy with mine. I was like, man, I can.
he looks like John
can do
Goodman. But
I look like a dried up raisin in mine.
Yeah, well, look, I already have the gray hair,
Yeah.
so how do you make grayer gray?
Yeah. Well, I
don't
mean, you're gonna be good looking forever. This guy's dapper as shit. Jeff, obviously, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah.
I want to get into your story because obviously you've kind of built a really good business. We met you yesterday, and by the way, shout out to Real Producers of Wayne County.
Yep.
We've been a partner of theirs in Oakland County. Now we're at Wayne County. They did a really good event yesterday at
Really
Toll
good.
Brothers
Yeah.
model home, which was
Gorgeous home.
Yeah.
It was wild.
a closet.
Yeah.
Which closet?
Yeah, you like the master bedroom closet?
yeah.
There's a master closet in every
And
room.
the living room in the master bedroom.
You're right.
Yeah,
Right.
It was a really nice
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, you were basically featured in the magazine. So, congratulations on that. Obviously, you're doing good things. So, I kind of want to get into for you, how you built your business. I think it's interesting because you talked about it yesterday, and you said, there's a lot of ways to build your business, and everybody can do different things.
Absolutely.
And you chose to do it a certain way. And I want you to kind of talk about your background, how you got into the business, and kind of how you built that business from there.
Yeah. So, so I think the biggest thing for me is I never really built the business in a way that was some gimmick, right? Like there wasn't like a specific niche, although I guess you could say looking back on it now, there is a niche that I have, which is just when you take good care of people, they just tend to take care of you.
Yeah.
Which is crazy that that's a niche.
Right.
Well, it's wild.
Right.
It's
But,
wild.
but you look at it,
It's true, though.
Even in the Metro Detroit area and some of the really big players that are there, they may focus very heavily on certain type of marketing. Maybe it's radio marketing or something like that. Or maybe they really focus on, calling through expireds and FSBOs, and they want to be like the best agent at that. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it. I agree.
But I just knew that was never me. Like I dabbled in it when I first started in the business, and I was just like, man, like I do not enjoy this part of the business.
Right.
I
it
just
wasn't your
enjoy
thing.
being with people. Like get me nose to nose, toes to toes, and that's what I want to be doing. And so we just have kind of organically built this thing over time. And I think that the telling thing for me is in the last year, we all obviously a good business discipline is just tracking everything, right?
Yeah.
So we always track our source and where everything's coming from. Really diligent about that, but sphere of influence, past clients, and referrals. That's everybody's bread and butter. I mean, if you could grow that, why wouldn't you?
I think that's a more sustaining business,
Right.
just so you know.
Absolutely.
You're not dependent on one thing like marketing, whatever it may be, right?
Yeah, and in my opinion, it's the most predictable.
Yeah.
Like you always know how your
because
people are going to respond.
Yep.
And you'll always have a foot in whatever niche that comes to be the trend, right? So if short sales are a big thing, well, you took care of a ton of people, right? They're going to call you, as opposed to like maybe the short sales specialist who thrives in one moment and then it's kind of down afterwards, right?
Well, and I think, so you bring up a good point. I mean, how many people were massive foreclosure agents?
Yeah.
And where are they now?
They're dried up.
Right.
It's hard.
There's very few that did a really good job of reinventing themselves after that.
Yeah.
One of them actually is in our office, and he does a fantastic job of reinventing himself from the foreclosure agent to being one of the top. He's actually the top producer in our office and does a fantastic
Who's
job.
that?
That's Andrew Hargraves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So awesome. I mean, he did an awesome job of seeing the shift, knowing that market was going to dry up and shifting. And he does a lot of things like I do. He just cares well for people. And so I think that's where we were talking about this before the show started, is just how can you adapt as the market changes?
Yeah.
Because the market's always going to change. It's never going to stay the
Gotta
same,
adapt.
right?
You
Like, I've been doing this for 15 years. I've seen the worst of the worst buyers markets, with the recession that hit. And then now, we've had a really good 10-year run. And now we're starting to see the market normalize. And it's like, but how are you going to adapt?
Right.
And for us, like, I think that adaptation has just been, like, that's just been my career. Like, it's just been, like, I got in 2005. The market tanked, like I think a quarter later.
Yeah,
So I don't,
yeah,
they're still looking into, maybe I'm the reason that the whole thing happened. I don't know. Like, they're like this guy started in business and the market started tanking. What's
You're
going
the black
on
cat,
here?
right?
But
Yeah.
But what we've just seen is that when we took good care of people during all the short sale years, and they're just coming back to us because they remember, like, we were honest, we were upfront, we always did the right thing. We always actually answered the phone and talked to people and returned their messages and things like that. And that imprints on people. And it's what built our business. And so 72% of our business last year came from those three sources, which is like 50% more than what most agents will experience.
That model makes so much sense to me. I don't understand the cold calling and the constantly beating up the phones. You spend a lot of money on those leads, and you're just constantly having to refill that basket.
Yeah, but to his point, you can have success in that.
You can.
Well, I think it's,
but I think it's a lot smarter to do it the way you're doing it because, well, for one, from the consumer standpoint, you know you're going to get good service because that's how your business is built.
well, it's a slower ball to roll, right?
Yes.
And it gets
Right.
bigger and bigger. But you don't have to reinvent yourself because you're yourself anyways,
Right.
right? So
Right.
you're just taking opportunities.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, I just tell people, like, I just happen to do real estate, but, like, my primary, like, who I would be regardless of whatever industry I ever was in, I would just care well for people.
Yeah.
Because I just like people. Like, and I think that's the problem is there's a lot of people that get into this business, they don't really like people.
They don't
Yeah.
like people.
You know what I mean? Like, they like money.
It's
Yeah.
profits
You
over
know?
people.
Yeah.
And it should be people over profits.
Correct.
They tend to
Right?
fizzle
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, and they do. They do. But there's some that don't, right?
Yeah.
Like, they have found a way to, like,
Monetize
capture,
transactions.
Correct.
Listen, nothing's better than when you're in a transaction. Let's say like an appraisal comes in low,
Right.
And
Right.
it's like, oh man, sellers are pretty. We're like $5,000 off, right?
Right.
And everyone's like, all right, I'll chip in 1,500. I'll chip in 1,500.
Yeah.
I'll do 1,500 or whatever, and borrower will have to bring an extra 500.
Right.
And they get the house they want,
Right.
right?
Right.
As opposed to, we're gonna relist.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and it's like I joke around nowadays, but it's like I'm probably the best degree I should have. Maybe I'll go back. Who knows? But should have gotten was a psychology degree.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when you're talking about people's biggest asset, right? Like the stress level that they put themselves under over this, and a lot of people in the industry will say, like, they're calling me constantly. They always, and it's just like they're a nuisance as a client. I'm like, no,
they don't know what's
they're
going
a
on,
real
dude.
person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're humans.
They're a real person,
Yeah.
and put yourself in their shoes. And, like, if you knew the one person that you hired to help give you advice and guide you through the way is not giving you the time of the day, not returning your messages, like, it's just going to cause them to be stressed out even more.
Yeah.
And
Pick up the phone.
So look, most of this gray hair is over the fact that, like, I cannot put my head down at night until I've made sure that I've reached out to the people that work for us or work with us.
So I think it's a good message because a lot of agents come into the business and then, like, man, how am I going to get my business going? That guy has billboards, and that guy does this, and
You know
that
what's
guy does that.
a humbling experience. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah,
I
you
was just
totally
thinking
did.
about it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of agents and a lot of mortgage professionals do not own homes, right? Like, I would say, like, they do it for a while, and then they end up buying a home. And it's always funny because we've done so many deals for agents themselves. It's like
buying their first house. Yeah,
they're like, oh my God, like
this is how it is.
Yeah.
and they're calling me all the time. They're like, I'm sorry for blowing you up, but and it's like, yeah, you get it now.
Yeah,
like a little bit. Like,
Or, no, that's so true.
Yeah, and
that
it's
is
like,
so true.
Yeah,
yeah.
So
you're a person just like them, right?
Because quite honestly, I help a lot of people sell homes. Like that's my primary role on the team is to list and sell them. I didn't sell my first home until 3 years ago.
Yeah,
I bought my first home, when I first got in the business, but I never was a seller.
No,
until then,
because you don't sell.
Right? And so it's like a different perspective. I had sold other houses, but they were flip houses, and I didn't really have emotional attachment to that.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, like to actually sell the family home, and I will say it was. I'm glad you brought that up because it helps you understand
the emotion
that somebody's going through. So when they brought their kids there, we were talking about our kids before the show. All my 3 children were born in that house.
Yeah, that's all they know.
And and they still actually
That's
3 years
hard.
later, they're still talking about like, hey, like I miss our old house. And it's funny because
My
like
wife
our
says that
new house,
weekly, at least.
our new house is like 4 times bigger. I'm like, what do you mean you miss that house? Like, I would have stayed there.
I worked really hard for this. Ungrateful shit.
Right.
My wife's the same way.
Yeah.
No, but I guess what I was trying to say earlier is like, so there's all these things, and people get in the business and they're like, oh, I need to do this, and I need to do that, and I need to do that. Ultimately, and I think this has more legs and more longevity. If you just do good work.
Yeah.
Yes, it's harder. It'll probably take more time, and you can always supplement with leads or whatever you want. But ultimately, if you can build a referral-based business where you are just known for doing good work, and people will gravitate towards that,
Absolutely,
that is a much stronger place to be.
And
ultimately,
it is hard because people will fall for the gimmick, right?
Right.
So like for us, like a big part of our business is realtor relationships, right? So once in a while, it's like, hey, I'm working with so and so now, right? They're doing this for me.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
okay,
good
luck, man.
Yeah, like best of luck. And then like
talk to you in 60
2,
days.
3, 4 months later, like we get a call, like, hey,
that wasn't worth
they
it.
couldn't.
Worth
Yeah.
but we don't hold it against them.
No.
Yeah.
Hey,
No, we get it.
weren't-
It's business.
We weren't paying that or doing
Yeah.
that. So okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody wants the reality of where we are in this society right now is everybody wants the quick fix. They want it. They want
The shiny object.
The shiny object. They think this is going to be the thing that's going to solve everything.
Right.
Nothing solves anything. Right. It's just what solves
Nothing
things.
solves anything.
It doesn't. What the only thing that will solve things is hard work, perseverance, good work. That will get you much farther.
Communication.
Communication is key. So, like when I first started in the business, I actually started as a buyer's agent. Worked for a guy who was my brother-in-law at the time. He's an ex-brother-in-law now, but we don't want to talk about that.
Okay, we're not.
Let's
going
let's
there.
not
Yeah,
go.
We're not going.
All right. But anyway, so but those first 4 years of my beginning of career, I just told people like, oh, that was 2005, 6, 7, 8. Think about that. Like I was a brand new agent during like the subprime
That's
market
super
crashing.
valuable, by the way. What you went through, what we all went. What I went through. It's super valuable.
It's super valuable.
Yeah.
I actually tell people all the time I was dumb enough, I was naive enough
to stay in it.
I all I knew how to do was work hard because
Yeah.
I've just always been a Midwest guy, right? And so born in Wisconsin, lived in Iowa for several years, moved out to the Washington Township, and lived out there for a couple of years, and then back to Iowa, graduated from the University of Northern
You've been
Iowa,
all over.
and
All
then
right.
came back here to,
all
to
Midwest,
Michigan.
yeah.
All Midwest. But the one thing is there's just a work ethic that exists here.
I agree with that.
That is you will not find
I totally
in a
agree with
lot
that.
of other areas of the country where
Yes.
it's just like, look, I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and do something tough. Like I tell people all the time, I had a paper route at a young age. Like I grew up in a pretty poor family, and so so I had to mow lawns, I had to go pick dandelions, I had to, I think detassel corn. Right, like not too many people are like, what are you talking about with detasseling corn? But it's a lot of hard work, you know, and that was everybody's summer job in Iowa, is if you were a teenager, you detasseled corn and you'd make a couple of grand in a 2-week time period, so it was good money, but it was hard work, and so those were the things that prepared me to do this, and so in 2008 and 2009, I mean, I remember my first short sale. It was in the subdivision that I lived in, and I got a call from Green Path, which is located up in Farmington Hills, right? And so they called me up, and they're like, "Yeah, we're working with this client, and we understand that they owe more than the home's worth, and we know they need to sell, and you've got it listed, and we think we can get them approved to do a short sale." And I'm like, "A short what?" Like, what are you even talking about?
What is a short
I
sale?
remember having to go Google short sale and go like, oh, like there's a path that can get people out of their home. And so it's just like, okay, then we're going to figure this out. And so we took good care of people. We did it in an honest way. And there's clients that I have that I had sat down with who I said, don't do this.
Yeah.
Right? Like when a lot of agents were like, oh yeah, we could do this. We can go help you buy a house and then we'll forfeit on this one. And I was like, you don't have to do this.
Yeah.
Don't ruin your credit. Just stay put for 2 or 3 more years. I promise you the market's going to rebound. And then it did. And guess what? Those people came back
so
pouring,
thankful.
and now not only did I get the transaction of helping them buy and sell their place when the time was right, but you know how many referrals I get out of that relationship because
That is strong.
I took good care of them.
So just so the audience understands, if you're in any industry, the power of saying no when it's the right thing to do is so powerful. We get caught into, and even people in our industry, every industry, right? People just want to please, they want to give them whatever they want without giving them really good advice. And B, it's transactional. They want the money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I want to get as much as possible.
Yeah.
Well, ultimately, if you're not doing right by the client, you will step back so much farther.
Right.
And what happened for you is you probably didn't take as many profits then.
Yeah.
But it catapulted you after.
Well, and this is a very personal story about myself in terms of that whole time. But I remember, so about the time, it was between fourth quarter of 08 and first quarter of 09. Things started getting rocky between the relationship that I had, where I was working previously, and so I left.
Okay.
And
That was probably a hard decision because you're probably a loyal guy, right?
a very loyal guy.
Yeah, I could tell.
It was family.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So obviously,
that makes it even harder.
Very tough.
Yeah.
And it's in 2009. Like if you guys remember 2009, the winter of 2009, we barely sold anything.
Yep.
And if you were lucky enough to sell something, it had probably a 20, anywhere from like a 5% to 10%. Appraisal issue.
Oh,
to overcome
everything.
like almost everything. So it's like, yeah, you got a contract, great. That wasn't even the biggest hurdle. I mean, that was already a big hurdle, but the biggest hurdle was then getting through the appraisal process. And so deals were falling apart left and right and things like that. I just remember, so for my wife and I, we had started a journey to become debt free. And part of that was because again the gray hair. When you're in 100% commission based business, as you guys know, I mean it's just stressful. When you're married, you got kids to take care of,
Carrying
you got
debt stress.
all of that other stuff to figure out. And so we had gotten so we were getting to a point where we were close to being debt free. It would have been probably like we were projecting maybe hopefully sometime in the early 2010. Is what we were kind of thinking. And so here I am thinking about, leaving. And at that point in time,
it's daunting, man.
We actually considered moving out of state.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people did.
Yep, a lot of people did, but we considered doing that. But just all these things fell into place for us. And it just made sense. And I that's when I went over to Coldwell Banker Preferred there in Plymouth. And it was like instantly my phone just started ringing. It was like almost like people just knew that like I needed to do some business.
That's
and
interesting.
it was like nothing I really did. It's just all of a sudden
People wanted to
the
support
phone
you.
started
They wanted to
ringing.
support you almost.
But they didn't even know I had made the transition.
Oh.
That's what was weird. Like
That's interesting.
Like so I'm a man
The
of
universe will give you what you put out
Yeah.
there. I believe
right.
that.
Yeah. And so for me I'd say it a little bit different, but because I'm a man of faith.
Yeah.
So I grew up as a pastor's kid. I would just say the Lord provided in a time where I needed it.
Yeah.
Right? And so I got all of a sudden, all this stuff coming. So instead of paying off all of our debt in 2010, we did it that summer of 2009.
Wow.
In a time when it was like, I mean, like all of this business just started coming. And I was just like, this is insane. Like there should be no reason this is happening. But there was a reason. It was 4.5 years of foundational stuff of just taking good care of people. And so in 2009, when everybody was saying, hey, it's a great time to buy, well, guess what? Everybody was referring their friends and family over to us.
Yeah.
And so I was able to capitalize on that. And then as the government stepped in and had all those first-time home buyer credits and things like that catapulted things even further. But for us, what that then allowed us to do is I remember July of 2009 was the first employee that I hired. And then that was the start of really the Packer Group.
That's interesting.
And then it's just been a wild ride since. Every year we've done more business, not because we had a very like specific plan. I mean, I do business planning and things like that, but it's not like we had a very specific plan. It's just business just kept pouring in, and it's because we just continue to do the right thing for the right people, and we're us. Yeah. We were just authentic, passionate about what we do. I mean, if I had $1 back then for every time I sat down with somebody and they'd be like, man, we interviewed 3 agents. All of them were like kind of doom and gloom and just like, ugh, because everybody was beat up then. I mean, I was even beat up.
Yeah, it was a dust bowl. It was horrible.
But when I was sitting down with them, they're like, you're the only guy who actually had like some sense of passion about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so again, that's contagious, and that's just me being me. And I just can't help it. I just love helping people. It's not the real estate stuff. I mean, real estate's fun for me, but it's just if I can help people and be an avenue for that, I'm going to get fired up.
Real estate is just a conduit for you to do that, regardless of what it was.
Regardless of what it would be.
So think about that, guys. Like we talk about this all the time. I mean, that's how we built our business. And even when we started our business, we got a lot of that, right? When we first started, people were like, let's we got a lot of business, which was interesting back then. But the reality is we built our business, and we forget this sometimes. I forget it sometimes. The foundation of who we are is we just do good work. You know what I mean? And if you just continue to do that, that will translate, and that has longevity in the market much more than a marketing plan or this gimmick over here. Ultimately, it's how good are you to your people. Yeah. That's interesting. That's a great message. So shifting gears a little bit now. Obviously, you've been in the business for some time. You've seen the ups and downs.
Yeah.
Anybody, in my opinion, that lived through the 2008, 2009 era has a really good perspective on the market because of that experience. Now we're seeing some changes. Yeah. We are seeing some changes, and we can't pretend like we're not. Especially where you are and where I live, which we don't get a lot of realtors from that area in the studio. I'm in Novi, and I've noticed personally that houses are sitting longer.
Yeah.
There's less houses on the market, or not less houses. It just seems like the market there, especially, has shifted a little bit. So tell me your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So. You guys are familiar with the absorption rate, right? Like that's a terminology most people. Yeah. It's just I'm surprised at how many agents. Like if you ask them, can you explain absorption rate? They won't realize. In my opinion, it's actually the single most important measure that we can look at to determine the temperature of the market, right? Yeah. Hot, cold, neutral, whatever it is. Yeah, so every time I run a market analysis, which is about for a client, sit down with them and things like that, which on average I'm probably, going out on about 4 to 5 listing appointments a week personally myself. And when I'm sitting down with people.
By the way, that means he goes out. You're still working.
I'm not just sending a team member. Yeah. They're going out on their own. But still, for me, I'm doing that. So when I sit down with people, I always go over absorption rate numbers. I know the absorption rate numbers for every house that I go out on. And
explain to the audience just because we've got
that looks like. Yeah. So what we would look at is let's just say average house in Canton, where I live, is right around $300,000.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to probably look at a price range. I'm going to look at everything in Canton. Canton has 3 different school districts, so we would focus, like, let's just say it's in Plymouth Canton School District. Yeah. So we would look at Canton, Plymouth Canton School District, and then we would put a price range of like maybe. Sometimes I'll do it a $50,000 price range depending on the house, or sometimes I'll do a $100,000 price range. And if it's $300,000, I'd probably do a $100,000 price range. So $250,000 to $350,000 price range if it's a $300,000 home.
Yeah, that's your trough, right?
So that's really all that I'm looking at is area, school district, and a price range. And so what we look at is we look at how many are active, how many sold in the last 6 months. We figure out what our monthly average is. And then we divide that out by how many are active. And then that will give us an absorption rate number, which is if no more homes hit the market, how quickly would the existing inventory be gone, right? And so so the units we're looking for is either days or months, right?
Yeah.
And it's usually months is the unit you're looking at. So when you look at that, I would say in most of the lower price ranges, we're still in what we would consider a seller's market. A seller's market is anything categorized where absorption rate or month supply of inventory, those are 2 different categories, by the way, but they're similar.
And you're thinking like 250 and below, 200, 150.
I would actually probably say, at least in the area that I do business, which is up and down that 275 corridor. Okay. I would say kind of that 400, 450 and under.
And under, right?
Yeah. Now,
conforming limit.
Now 350 and under for sure. 350 and under. We're still looking at absorption rates that are falling somewhere between 0.75 months, like not even a full month, upwards to maybe 2 months. But not much higher than 2 months.
Still pretty good.
Still really good. Usually in the last couple of years when the market's been super white hot, if you're at 1 month or under, I mean, you list that house, it's probably gotten
multiple
7,
offers.
8, 9 offers on it. You're getting 30 people through the first weekend, things like that.
Yeah.
So then when I look at and so the trend that I've been seeing is that the higher price point homes. So you start getting into like the 400 to 500, or 350 to 500. You're starting to see it closer to 3 months, maybe 3.5 months, and then you get above 5.
6,
so
7,
Canton, Plymouth, Northville, Novi, South Lyon, those areas have higher price homes. You're getting. I'm starting to see actually absorption rates 4 to 5 months.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like a lot of people don't realize there is a market in between a seller and buyer's market, right? So we see people see the shift and they're all starting to scream, "Hey, it's a buyer's market." Well, no, it's probably just a normal market. Yeah. When you're in that 3 to 6 month range, it's just normal. Like it might, certain houses might be favored more towards the seller because it's maybe a more desirable location. Maybe it's been
quality,
the really nice home, whatever it is. Maybe it's a 10 out of 10 on greatschools.org as far as the elementary school or whatever. So those things will dictate some of that stuff and make it maybe more desirable and maybe slant it more towards the sellers and getting multiple offers still. Where then there's other homes that may just struggle. And we're seeing this. I've got a $1 million home in downtown Northville, super desirable area, but it's struggling to get sold because it's not that it's not priced right, because it is. It's just there's not a lot of buyers
and
looking
also
to spend that kind of money.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
now.
That pool of humans looking for that price range is small as
Much
it is.
smaller.
Much smaller, right?
Yeah.
And they're also much pickier. There's just a whole different. It's a different market of that price range.
They say that's a leading indicator, though, right? Because
usually, yes.
When people in that position start tightening up, or not spending or whatnot, it trickles down and snowballs.
Absolutely, and that's why we have to pay attention to it. But I don't think we have to necessarily say, nobody's going to be buying houses and it's going to become a buyer's market. I mean, we were talking about this before the show. Bottom line is that in the lost decade, we'll call it, of kind of like the recession and all of what we kind of went through, maybe a lot of people weren't buying homes, but a lot of people were still doing things that create human beings, right?
Babies.
Yeah.
And that drives a lot, yeah.
Population growth still happened, right? Actually, you'd probably make an argument because people didn't have a whole lot of money at that time, or money was a lot tighter. There was probably a lot more baby making that was happening.
Yeah, that's
right?
That's true. In down times, people do that.
So when you look at things like I pay a lot of attention to Lawrence Yun, who's the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors.
Okay.
This guy, in my opinion, this guy is like who Warren Buffett is to the investment world. As far as financial industry. I think Lawrence Yun is to
he's like
the
our
real
Barry
estate
Habib.
industry.
Yeah, he's like our Barry. I should get him on the show.
Yeah.
I need to get him on the show.
If you could get Lawrence, that'd be awesome.
I'm going to get him.
But phenomenal guy, right? And he talks about this all the time, is that for like a decade when the builders stopped building, the demand for housing was still growing. Like we still had population growth. We still had, all this stuff. It's just what happened is it shifted now a little bit, right? Like we're starting to see even with the resurgence of downtown Detroit, right? Like there's this shift towards urban life that especially like the millennials and things like that are looking for. But it's not only the millennials. You look at a lot of the 55 and older, they're showing up in downtown Detroit.
Listen, I was
in
Midtown. We went to Cash Gold Cash for the other night for my birthday. And it blew, like every time I go down there, it blows my mind even more. Every time. And I'm talking months difference between them, right? And strollers, people riding their bikes, age demographics were it wasn't just your millennials.
Correct.
It was all across the board.
It was across the board.
Yeah,
and
families, everything.
And here's a great example. So I was working with somebody a couple of years ago. We sold their house in Canton. They bought a condo in Northville. And then at the same time, they were buying that condo in Northville. They closed on a condo down in Detroit.
Yeah.
And they're a empty nester.
They just wanted to have a place in Detroit.
Because they were there every weekend, going to the sports games. You know, we sometimes forget how lucky we are to have all 4 of our major league sports teams down in the city.
It was a big.
It's a big deal.
You know,
and so you got all this draw down there, and it's this vibrant life. So I think what's shifted a little bit, at least especially locally here, is that we're seeing a trend a little bit more towards urban life. You know, we're seeing like downtown Dearborn's getting a major facelift by Ford Motor Company.
Unreal what's going on there too. Yeah. It's beautiful down there now.
And I sat in on a city planning meeting just this week where we had Northville and Farmington and Canton and Plymouth Township and Plymouth City all there telling us all of the stuff that they have going on. And it's like almost, I'd probably say close to 60 to 70% of the construction going on for residential in those areas are all geared towards empty nesters.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It's changing.
And so we see the population is getting older. Most of the new construction stuff, as far as commercial stuff, is all like assisted living housing. Tons of those are popping up
everywhere,
right?
Yeah.
And then even Canton, for instance, they've got like 6 projects that are all apartments right now. They hardly had apartments being built for like probably 2 decades. Like the last probably apartment complex in there was like most of them are late 70s, early 80s, and now they're building like 5 or 6 of them that are all in a similar area, but it's just like and it's crazy. Like the monthly rent on some of these places is like $2,400 a month.
No, they're not cheap. No.
People could buy a house.
Yeah,
they buy a really big house.
But we're seeing from all the NAR and reports and things like that is that there is a little bit of a shift, a paradigm shift in terms of what people's mindsets are about where they want to live.
Yeah.
Right? It's not always a house.
Well, here's a big thing for empty nesters too, right? Well, I want to be in Florida, right? At least in our area, it's like
right.
Yeah. So why spend X, right?
Right.
But my grandkids are here, so I'm going to get a place here and fly down.
Like a condo. Yeah, the summers they're staying in a condo here or renting.
We'll rent a condo down in Florida.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
for a few months, and every year we can do a new place in Florida.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, we're seeing that a lot.
So you're experiencing a lot of this, especially where you're at. And to your point earlier, just to go back to this, the guys and girls in Detroit that have been working that area for forever, right?
Yeah.
And putting in all that work.
Yeah.
To your point, what we talked about earlier, all that work that they did and kind of toughen it out, they're probably reaping the rewards now, right? Think about that.
Absolutely.
You know, people were like, "Why are you in Detroit, dude?"
Yeah.
Like, you're selling $40,000 houses. Now they're the experts. Now
they're going to be the ones that they'll be able to leverage and take advantage of, like because it's coming. I mean, you look at Woodward, and if you're familiar with like the Magical Mile in Chicago,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, honestly, I look at
it's happening.
I look at what's there, and I look at what they're doing on Woodward. And I can see a big correlation, and I can see where Detroit can set something up. And I mean, we could thank obviously Gilbert and others, for their investment into that type of stuff. But it's magical.
But it's a blank slate in my this is the beauty. It's like we're building a new city from rubble, really, and then building it up, and we're creating it from
where that Hudson's building is. I mean, think how massive that building is going to be.
It's going to be beautiful. I can't wait till they're done with that.
What has happened in Detroit is atypical, but it took a lot of effort from. But
it'll be interesting to see the corridor connect to downtown.
Yeah. There's a lot going on, man, as far as that goes. But going back to you and your challenges now being that your area of expertise, kind of in this area, you're seeing these different changes. So now we talk about adapting.
Yeah.
Obviously, the core is the same. Do good work, right? Yeah. But ultimately, what are you doing, I guess, for anybody out there that's listening across the country that kind of is going through a shift in their market?
Yeah.
What are you doing to kind of either insulate yourself or put yourself in position to still succeed through that?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And so one of the things that we did, I'm a firm believer of constantly learning. Right, like you've got to I try not to. I mean, everybody has an ego, but I try not to have a big ego.
It's hard.
I try to understand that I can learn from anything.
Correct.
Right,
I agree.
And my team knows this is we fail forward.
That's awesome.
Failure is never a failure if you fail forward. And obviously, I took that from a book. I can't even remember which one, but
failure is necessary.
But it's how I grew.
Yeah,
it's how I became better. When I screwed up, I didn't say, man, I screwed up. I
I'm going to pack it in and go home.
What I did is I said, okay, how can I make sure this never happens again, right? So I think for us, one of the things we did this last February is, of all places, I took my director of sales, who kind of runs our buyer agent side of the.
How many people on your team, by the way?
So I've got 13 employees
okay.
now.
Okay.
You know, and that's spread across 3 businesses. And if we have time, we can get into that a little bit. It's not as necessary, but but a bulk of them work on the real estate side.
Got it.
So we're heavy on the support side. So again, we put our money where our mouth is. So I have a very good support staff. And we do that because we know we've got to make sure that if we're going to handle the volume of business that we do,
your people got to be out there working.
We've got to have a good support staff that is taking good care of our clients because there's going to be times where I'm with a client. And when I'm with a client, I'm fully engaged in that client. You know, like you'll notice I don't wear an Apple Watch. I used to. I actually got rid of it.
You can't.
I got rid of it. Month.
Yeah, because it was just. Look, I need to be fully engaged. Yeah, exactly. So for us, what we're doing different. So we took a trip out to Iowa in February. One of this amazing team that's out there, Amy Wiens, Real Estate, and they. If you can get her on the show, you should do that.
Okay.
I'm serious.
If you're listening,
she is phenomenal.
If you're listening, we like having good people on the show.
Yeah. So she's got a great team. She's independent. She was part of a broker, left, went independent. Okay. She has. They closed in Iowa, Cedar Falls, Waterloo, which would be I'd equate it to be a similar size of like Ann Arbor.
Okay.
She did 600 deals last year. Which is like 30% of their market.
A good friend of mine is from Iowa. He lives here, married a friend of mine. We're very close, and he goes back and forth there. So I'll be interested to ask him about that because he probably knows her. His family lives in Iowa. Yeah.
Do you know where?
Dude, I have no idea.
Okay.
I'll call him.
Most people think it's just mainly cornfields, and then there's a few cities.
Yeah.
And that's true.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but anyway, so she's got a phenomenal business, does a great job, and anyway, so we went out and studied her for a week.
It's genius, dude. I love that. I love that. Your ego's not too big to say I can't learn from someone else. That's awesome.
Right. And I learned 2 primary things. One, that I'm super jealous of her. She's got probably the best real estate team I've ever witnessed and laid eyes on.
I gotta get on the show.
So she's phenomenal. But 2 is that while I was there, it was just amazing. But I just hope someday that my team says to people that come and maybe tour us someday, the things that they all said about her. And it's her character, right?
She's a good leader.
So every one of them said, like, we do what we do because of Amy. We care so much about her because she cared so much about us. She took such good. So a lot of times when we think of our clients or think about doing good for people, right? We sometimes focus just all of our energy on our clients, and then we treat the people that we're on there that are the reason I'm where I'm at, like all my employees, like crap, right?
Yeah.
And so
it happens a lot in our industry.
It does.
So you know, a lot.
It does. Well,
profits over people.
I'll never name drop some of these, but there's these models out there, big team models where you see a revolving door
because the people don't matter,
and it's just
and eventually it becomes a mutiny, right? Yeah, and then all of a sudden this captain's left on an island and has to figure out how to live.
Yeah, and we've seen some of that too.
Yeah.
So I think the bottom line for me is like I know that I'm where I'm at today because of the 13 people that work for me, and I try to do my darndest within my means to take great care of them.
Yeah.
And if I can take great care of them, they're more motivated to take great care of our clients. And then if we're all taking great care of our clients, we're going to see that trickle down effect of our biggest portion of our business, our past clients, our sphere, and our referrals growing like we did last year. So we started doing these client appreciation events a couple years ago, and we've seen a 10% hike, even though our business has grown and we're seeing an increase in business. We're also seeing an increase in those 3 categories by 10% because we're just starting to love on our people even more than we already were.
Right. And, certain industries, not ours in particular, but like when a group grows 10%, like for example, in like financial advising, right? When you have a team, the team has assets, right? And when those assets grow 10%, everyone makes 10% more money that year.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
With us, it's easier, especially like a team. Like hey, we killed it this year.
Yeah.
But why is my check the same, right?
Yeah.
Or you get I did double the work and got paid the same. Everyone should be taken care of, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, you've got to treat your people great.
So for us, like what we're trying to do to learn with the market shifting and things like that is what are other people doing in sometimes more challenging markets than we're even in. Because that market is not a super transient market. We benefit in Metro Detroit because it's super transient.
Yeah.
I mean, how many
coming in, going in and out?
Yeah, three years, right? There's so many times where Ford or GM or Chrysler or UPS or FedEx or wherever the big companies are that are bringing people in, Detroit's usually a stop along the way for a promotion.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Unless it's the big three. A lot of the other companies that aren't headquarters here, but they have a presence here, we're just a stop, a necessary stop.
And that's not slowing down. We're getting more and more companies investing in Detroit, so we're going to have a lot more of that.
Correct.
That's interesting.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we benefit from a very transient society. And so there's always going to be business for us. It's just how's it going to look, right? Like what are the challenges that we're going to be up against, in terms of, is it more of a buyer's market? Is it more neutral? Is it seller's market? What is going on?
But ultimately what I'm hearing from you, which is really interesting, you're like, my strategy today. It's just do good work and take advantage of whatever opportunities we have available to us. But within that, the fabric of who we are does not change.
No, we don't change. We just might focus on how we communicate through those challenges. Because really, at the end of the day, if you think about it, in any market, the goal of the buyer or seller is the same. I want to buy a house. I want to sell a house. That's it.
Yeah, and I
That's
want to be
it.
happy
But the
doing
difference
it.
is how to go, right? For example, on our end, we can close a deal in 12 days.
Right.
But how to go?
Right.
Was this person like, dude, this
was
was a nightmare.
frantic, and it was like,
it was terrible, right?
Or like, situations where, if you're, I think something on our end is if I don't care if it gets clear to close in 12 days, if the seller can't vacate, it doesn't matter. And and we put a lot of extra undue stress on the whole situation.
Now, can you get out?
Of it.
I want to do that. Now, it almost causes the opposite of that.
Communication is the biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
So, like, for example, like on our end, hey, we want to lock this interest rate, right?
Yeah.
If I lock for 15 days, I get you a better deal.
Yeah.
You lock for 15 days, and then you realize, oh, wait, this isn't closing for 28.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to do an extension. The market's worse, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, we'll get that with like we'll have a purchase agreement that has a
Bauer's
particular
lock
date.
expires.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, why did
Crazy.
you get a lock that expired like 10 days before
their
the
LO
closing?
doesn't care.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He didn't answer questions,
It's a
right?
transaction.
So I think to answer the question is for the biggest shift for us is just and we talk weekly in our team meetings about what are the objections that we're experiencing, what are the objections we know we will be experiencing as this market shifts, and how can we better articulate then that conversation. And I think a couple of podcasts ago, you guys had somebody on that talked about the power of meeting with people like on the front end and setting expectations, like communication being such a big thing, right? So I think that's one of the big things is that like we hardly at all will work with a buyer if they haven't come in and done a buyer consult. And so we'll sit down with them.
You have to understand them.
We'll go
Setting
through the
yourself up for
process. We'll let them know exactly what this is going to look like. And here's a perfect example. So we had a lead that contacted us. I've got somebody on the front end that is an internal sales guy. So he set the appointment with one of my buyer's agents. My buyer's agent sat down with them. Went through everything. They had already found kind of online 2 properties that they were really interested in.
They're ready to go, right?
And so the buyer consultation set the expectation, right? So they knew exactly what this process was going to look like. They already had 2 properties that they really liked. So buyer's agent put them in the car, went and looked at them. They were like on opposite ends of Metro Detroit. So it was like big drive time between each. The second house they fell in love with, wrote the offer, and they're closing in 20 days.
All right.
And it's just like that. I mean, if all of them worked that way, that'd be awesome.
Right.
Right. But it's when you set those expectations, you go out there, like I tell our clients or our agents all the time, we're not showing homes, we're selling them.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
So when you're out there,
understand what they want
with them and you know what they want, and you need to help remind them, hey, you told me this was important, this was important, this was important. You revisit that when you're out at the house and you say, hey guys, remember when you said the open floor plan was really important to you?
So important to do that, man.
Look at how open this floor plan is.
Right.
You know, when you said you don't have a lot of extra money because you guys are still paying off student loan debt, and you wanted to make sure that you got something that was more move-in ready.
Right.
You know, so whatever it is, if you know your client really well and you actually care about them, and it's not just a transactional experience, you can then speak to that as you're out with them. Same thing on the listing side. You know, I'm constantly saying, guys, like I just had a client, you mentioned Florida, who was selling their Plymouth Ranch home, which we sold for way over asking price with multiple offers because it's a super desirable type of home, and they were moving down to Florida. And so as we were talking through that, they had a particular net that was important to them, and the only way we were going to get that net is if I got an over asking offer, and we did by $12,000. And even with that, you know, quite honestly, their net, when all said and done, was a little bit less than what they wanted. You know, and
but you gave proper expectations. Yeah, that was good.
And I shaved the commission just to. They didn't even ask.
You
I just shaved
wanted
it to keep it right at their net.
Yes.
I gave up like $600-700.
But you did the right thing.
But I did so that, and I didn't say anything. He noticed.
Oh, he did.
He did.
That's
he did
good.
notice, and
All
he thanked me profusely. He's like, "You didn't have to do that." I said, "I know, but you told me you wanted a certain net,
And that's what I did.
and we were really close. And why not?
Yeah.
You know, consider that a closing gift."
So we're running out of time. So
yeah.
we got about 5 more minutes, and we do a thing on the show. I'm
Yeah.
sure you heard 3 questions.
Yeah.
Totally random. First one's always
All
the same. First one is, what scares Jeffrey Packer?
Yeah. Losing unexpectedly, like one of my kids or my wife, you know, like a tragic thing. That's
had to go there.
I know. I'm sorry.
No.
Well, it's a little fresh for me because we just lost our office manager. He was recognized at the party.
Yes.
33 years old.
Wow.
Had
So
a heart issue and died. And
Tragic.
Yeah. And so it's a little fresh, but that's literally, if I have one fear in life, that's it.
That's for me personally,
Got
like,
goosebumps, bro.
yeah.
I know.
Look, me too, dude.
Hey,
no,
man.
no joke.
Hey,
No
like
joke.
my wife and kids are up north right now, and I was FaceTiming them on the way here.
Yeah.
And honestly, I just cannot wait to hug them
Yeah.
tomorrow night
That's
when they
awesome.
get back, because it's just like they're
everything.
They're why we work
Yep.
hard and sacrifice and do all that we do in this business.
I'm gonna start crying.
So,
Jeff, so you
100%.
I know, man. Hey, we can hug. We can hug it out. We can hug it out.
All right, we'll lighten it up a little bit.
Do we even need the other 2 questions?
No, we do. Yeah.
Can't end on that note.
No. So
Yeah.
if you were stranded on a desert island by yourself and you
Yeah.
can only have one
No
item,
family.
one item, no,
One
one
item.
item with you, one item, what would you have on that island with you for the rest of your life?
Are we talking about a tropical island?
Yes, it's a tropical island. It's very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but coconuts, whatever you want.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna have? What's that one item?
Yeah, sunscreen. Yeah. Hey, man. Look.
Practical.
Look. I mean,
Absolutely practical.
Nothing. I've watched that Naked and Afraid, and
Yeah.
I've seen those people that like get fried.
I
and
get
then
bug
like,
spray, probably.
Yeah. Well, that was my other thought, was maybe bug spray, but no, I need to protect myself from the sun. So
If you could take
Bring
over,
a nice machete
Yeah.
and chop down
No,
and
no.
make yourself a shelter.
yeah, but you don't want to be all,
Yeah,
you might have meetings.
The bugs are brutal.
Hey, yeah, true.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I need. I probably wouldn't survive.
I
would not.
I would not be like Tom Hanks.
No,
like
no.
maybe that's what I should
How
have
about a
said. I just
satellite
need
phone?
a volleyball.
Volleyball.
If you could get me
You
a
need a
volleyball,
Wilson.
that's all I
You need
need.
a Wilson.
Yeah.
Next question is: if you could be a CEO of any company in the world and just take it over, what company would you be the CEO of?
Oh, Ramsey Solutions.
Who is that?
You know Dave Ramsey?
Oh
Obviously,
yeah.
Gordon
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not.
Like Gordon Ramsay.
I can't yell at people when they make me a good dish.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is
anything.
crap.
Yeah.
But it's like the best thing you ever
No,
ate.
but I've met Dave, had dinner with him a couple of times. I've been very fortunate to be in
Yeah.
a position to do that. But that dude is
Smart.
straight up smart.
Smart.
Did it the hard way, like.
So you'd kick him out and take over?
No. I wouldn't want to kick him out, but I would just, I'd keep him on as a board of
Consultant.
directors,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd absolutely take over
That's
that
interesting.
business.
That'd
I
be
mean,
cool.
he operates his business debt free.
Yeah.
So I'm taking over a business that's not in a financial problem,
Correct.
right? They actually provide a service that helps people.
They give value.
They get
actual value.
tremendous value.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm selling something that's detrimental, right? Like
No,
I'm
you're
selling
helping, yeah.
super helpful stuff. And he's in Nashville, Tennessee,
Yeah, which is pretty sweet.
which is
Nashville's
like, if
a
you've
cool
never been
city.
to Nashville, it's like one of my favorite cities in the
Vegas.
United States,
Nash
man.
Vegas is
oh,
nice.
it is awesome.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I'd definitely take. And if it meant I also got his house, that'd be great too.
I'm sure he's got a beautiful house. I've never seen it, but I'm sure it's nice. Listen, Jeff, we really appreciate it. I mean, your insight is really, really good. I think you've got a really good thing going. Tell the audience how they can get a hold of you or your team if they're looking for anything from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we're located in Plymouth, but you can always email me, Jeff at welcomehomedetroit.com. Our website's welcomehomedetroit.com, and then our cell phone numbers is 734-707-7992.
One more time with the number.
Yep, 734-707-7992.
By the way, I'm always interested when people get good
sevens.
domain names. Welcome Home Detroit.
That's great.
Isn't that awesome?
That's my immediate thought too. I was like, man, that's good.
Yeah.
So that's how I think. I like
It's just the only problem is a really long domain name.
Yeah.
You know,
But
like
it's
It's easy to
cool.
spell.
But
It's cool.
the short ones are really expensive.
Yeah.
It's not like where there's two of the same letter next to each other.
Right.
Yeah,
Although
those are hard.
although for people from out of the area, Detroit's not an easy city to
No,
spell,
yeah.
and they'll like get it wrong
Oh
all the
yeah,
time.
yeah. I can see that.
D-E-T-R-I-T-E.
It's like pronouncing Gratiot if you're not from here.
Yeah.
GPS.
How about
Gratiot?
How about Shaner?
Lasser.
Yeah,
How about
right.
Lasser?
I can never spell Shaner right.
Yeah.
Go to
no,
the UP
never.
and try to pronounce some of those names.
So,
Yeah. Don't you know?
Don't you know? Listen,
Cool.
Again,
Up at the
honestly,
50-50.
absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
You know,
thanks, guys.
we really, really appreciate
Had
your
a lot of
insight. It
fun.
was great. Great information. Everybody out there, thank you for listening. Please go to irepodcast.com, go to iTunes, subscribe, like, share, do all of that stuff. And
Rate, review.
we'd like a review. Yeah, we'd like more reviews. We need more reviews. I feel like.
Smash that subscribe button. Is that the term?
Yeah, the YouTube.
My kids been watching a lot of YouTube.
By the way, just so everybody knows, before we go,
Smash that button.
YouTube is the future. When your 2- and 3-year-old know how to use YouTube, you know that's going to be ingrained in them for the rest of their lives. So
True.
you get on
YouTube
YouTube.
is heaven, dude.
Yeah, YouTube is
I mean,
great.
anything you wanna
and it's
know.
an
Yeah.
unvalued
It's like the Google
platform
of-
in our demographic. So anybody out there that isn't on YouTube, get on it. So love you guys. Have a wonderful week. Next week is Barry Habib. Look for that episode. It's really, really good. We'll talk to you soon.